My name is Lisa Martinez. I am 36 years old and I live in Denver, Colorado. The day I walked into that courtroom for my divorce hearing, I thought I had already lost everything. I thought my life was over. I was about to lose my house, maybe even lose custody of my daughters. But what happened in that courtroom changed everything. When my 14-year-old daughter Maya stood up and said, "Your Honor, can I show you something?"
I can't believe this is happening. Why did they show that?
My God, how could he have done that?
My whole world stopped. The video she played that day did not just shock the judge. It exposed a betrayal so deep, so calculated that I still have trouble believing it happened to me. But I am getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you how this all started, because you need to understand how a man I loved with my whole heart turned into a stranger who tried to destroy me. Before the story continues, please drop a comment and tell me which city or state you are watching from. Hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so we can keep bringing you these real-life stories of survival and justice. Your support means everything to us.
Every time I close my eyes, I see what he did. I can't live like this anymore. Please, you have to believe me.
12 years ago, I thought I had the perfect life. I was 24 years old, freshly graduated from nursing school, working at Denver Health Medical Center in the emergency room. The work was hard, the hours were long, but I loved it. I loved helping people. I loved the feeling of making a difference, and that is where I met James Martinez. He came into the ER one night with a broken wrist from playing basketball. He was handsome, charming, and funny even though he was in pain. He made me laugh during my whole shift. Before he left, he asked for my number. I gave it to him. 6 months later, we were engaged. A year after that, we were married. James was 30 at the time. He worked in real estate development. He bought old properties, fixed them up, and sold them for profit. He was good at it too. By the time we got married, he was already making 6 figures a year. I felt so lucky. He was successful, ambitious, and he told me every single day that he loved me. For the first 2 years of our marriage, everything was perfect. We bought a beautiful house in the suburbs. We traveled. We talked about having kids. We planned our future together. When I got pregnant with our first daughter, Maya, James was so excited. He painted the nursery himself. He read every parenting book he could find. He promised me he would be the best father in the world. But then James asked me something. He said, "Lisa, I think you should quit your job. I make enough money for both of us. Maya needs her mother at home. I don't want our daughter raised by daycare workers." At first, I hesitated. I loved nursing. I had worked so hard to get my degree, but James was so convincing. He said, "You'll be able to go back to work later when the kids are older. Right now, our family needs you at home." He made it sound like the right thing to do. Like it was what a good mother would choose, so I quit. I gave up my career to stay home with Maya, and for a while it felt like the right choice. I loved being a mom. I loved watching Maya grow, teaching her to walk and talk, reading her bedtime stories every night. When Sophie was born 5 years later, I felt like my life was complete. I had 2 beautiful daughters, a husband who provided for us, a comfortable home. I thought I was blessed. But slowly, things started to change. It was not sudden. It was slow, like water dripping on stone until it finally wears through. James started working late more and more often. He would come home at 9 or 10 at night, sometimes even later. When I asked him about it, he would say, "Lisa, I am building a business. I'm doing this for us. Do you think money just appears out of nowhere?" His tone was always slightly annoyed, like my question was stupid, so I stopped asking. He started spending more time on his phone. He would be sitting right next to me on the couch, but his attention was completely on that screen. When I would try to talk to him, he would not even look up. He would say, not listening at all. If I said, "James, I am talking to you," he would snap at me. "I heard you, Lisa. God, you are so needy." Needy? That word started coming up a lot. If I asked him to help with the girls, I was needy. If I wanted to have dinner together as a family, I was needy. If I asked where he had been or why he came home so late, I was needy. I started to feel like I was the problem, like I was asking for too much. He made me feel guilty for wanting basic things like time together or conversation or help with our children. Then there were the other small things that added up. He started wearing cologne. James never wore cologne before. When I mentioned it, he said, "I bought it for work. I have to meet clients. I need to look and smell professional." Okay, that made sense, but then I noticed he only wore it on certain days, not every day, just certain days. There were receipts in his pockets. That did not make sense. Expensive restaurants I had never been to, charges for flowers, but I never received any flowers. When I asked about them, James would get defensive. "Those are business expenses, Lisa. I take clients out. I buy gifts for important people. You do not understand how business works." He made me feel stupid for asking. His credit card bills started getting higher and higher. There were charges for hotels in Denver. We live in Denver. Why would he need a hotel here? When I asked, he said, "Sometimes I have to meet clients from out of town. It is easier to meet them at their hotel. Stop being so paranoid." Paranoid, another word that came up a lot. I was paranoid. I was suspicious. I was jealous for no reason. He made me doubt my own gut feelings. Then his phone became completely off limits. He changed his passcode before I knew it. We had always shared passwords, it was never a secret, but suddenly his phone was locked and I did not know the code. If I asked why, he would explode. Do I not get any privacy? Do you need to control every part of my life? You are acting crazy, Lisa. Crazy, that was the worst word. He started using that word all the time. I was crazy for asking questions. I was crazy for being concerned. I was crazy for noticing that my husband was pulling away from me. He made me question my own sanity. There were calls he would take in another room. If I walked into a room while he was on the phone, he would suddenly lower his voice or hang up quickly. Work call, he would say. Nothing important. But if it was nothing important, why did he have to leave the room? Why did he hang up when I came in? The intimacy between us disappeared. We stopped having sex. We stopped touching. We barely even spoke to each other anymore. James came home late, ate dinner alone in his office, and went to bed after I was already asleep. On weekends, he was busy with work. He missed soccer games. He missed school events. He was never around, and when he was around, he was distant and cold. I felt like I was living with a stranger. I tried to talk to him about it. I tried so many times. I would say, James, I feel like we are drifting apart. Can we please go to couples counseling? He would laugh, actually laugh at me. Counseling, Lisa, I do not have time for that. I am busy building a future for this family. Maybe if you contributed something instead of just sitting at home all day, you would understand. Sitting at home all day, that is how he saw me, like I did nothing. Like raising his children, cooking his meals, cleaning his house, managing every detail of our family life was nothing. I started to feel completely worthless. I had no job, no income of my own, no career to go back to after 12 years away from nursing. I depended on James for everything. He controlled all the money. He gave me an allowance for groceries and household expenses, but that was it. If I needed anything for myself, I had to ask him, and he would question every purchase. Why do you need new shoes? The ones you have are fine. Why are you spending money on that? We need to save. But somehow there was always money for his cologne, his new clothes, his dinners out, just not for me. I felt trapped. I felt invisible. I felt like I was disappearing inside my own life, but I had 2 daughters to think about. Maya was 12 at the time and Sophie was 7. They needed stability. They needed their father, so I kept quiet. I kept trying. I kept hoping things would get better. Then one Tuesday afternoon, everything fell apart. I was doing laundry. I pulled James's pants out of the hamper to check the pockets before washing them. That is when I found it. A receipt from the Ritz-Carlton Hotel in downtown Denver. The date was from 3 days ago, Wednesday night, the night James said he was working late at the office. The night he came home at midnight and went straight to the guest room because he did not want to wake me. The receipt was for 1 night, room service for 2. A bottle of champagne, chocolate-covered strawberries. My hand started shaking as I stared at that piece of paper. This was not a business meeting. This was romantic. This was an affair. I felt like the floor had disappeared under my feet. I could not breathe. My chest felt tight. I sat down on the laundry room floor holding that receipt, and I finally let myself accept what I had been denying for months. My husband was cheating on me. I waited until the girls were asleep that night. Then I walked into James's office with the receipt in my hand. He was sitting at his desk typing on his laptop. I put the receipt down in front of him. What is this? I asked. My voice was shaking. James looked at the receipt. He did not look surprised. He did not look guilty. He looked annoyed. It is a hotel receipt, Lisa. What do you think it is? Why were you at a hotel in Denver? I asked. Who were you with? James closed his laptop slowly. He leaned back in his chair and looked at me like I was a child asking a dumb question. I was with someone, yes, he said calmly. Who? I demanded. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I would pass out. Her name is Natalie, James said, just like that. No guilt, no apology, just cold, factual information. She works at my office. We have been seeing each other for a while now. The room started spinning. I grabbed the edge of his desk to steady myself. How long? I whispered. 2 years, James said. 2 years, 2 years of lies. 2 years of him coming home and kissing me goodnight while he was sleeping with someone else. 2 years of me blaming myself for our failing marriage while he was building a whole secret life. I want a divorce, James said. He said it so casually, like he was telling me what he wanted for dinner. I am not happy, Lisa. I have not been happy for a long time. I deserve to be happy. That was it. That was his explanation. He deserved to be happy. What about me? What about our daughters? What about 12 years of marriage and 2 children and a life we built together? None of that mattered. Only what James deserved. You cannot do this, I said, tears streaming down my face. We have children, we have a family, we can fix this, we can go to counseling, we can. No, James interrupted me. I do not want to fix this, I want out. I'm moving in with Natalie. My lawyer will contact you about the divorce. And that was it. That was how my marriage ended. Not with years of trying to save it, not with fighting for our family, just with my husband telling me he had been cheating for 2 years and wanted out. Have you ever ignored red flags in a relationship because you wanted to believe everything was fine? What happened? This is just the beginning of Lisa's story. Subscribe now because part 2 reveals the betrayal that destroyed everything. Hit like if you've ever felt invisible in your own marriage. Comment below which city you're watching from. The next morning I woke up hoping it was all a nightmare. But when I rolled over, James's side of the bed was empty. He had slept in the guest room, or maybe he had not slept at all. Maybe he had left in the middle of the night to be with her, with Natalie. I lay there staring at the ceiling and I realized my entire life had been a lie. Everything I thought I knew, everything I believed about my marriage, it was all fake. James had been playing a role for 2 years. Kissing me goodnight while thinking about another woman, sitting at the dinner table with our daughters while planning his escape. How does someone do that? How does someone lie so completely and feel nothing? I got up and went through the motions of getting the girls ready for school. Maya noticed something was wrong immediately. She is smart, observant, too observant sometimes. "Mom, are you okay?" she asked while I was making her lunch. "You look like you have been crying." I forced a smile. "I am fine, baby, just tired, did not sleep well." But Maya kept staring at me with those knowing eyes. She did not believe me, but she did not push. Sophie, my 7-year-old, was too busy chattering about her upcoming field trip to notice anything. I was grateful for that. At least one of my daughters could stay innocent a little longer. After I dropped them at school, I came home to an empty house. James had already left for work, or maybe he went to Natalie's place. I did not know anymore. I did not know anything. I went to our bedroom and opened his closet. Half his clothes were gone. He had packed while I was sleeping. Packed his things and prepared to leave without even talking to me about it. I sat on our bed, the bed we had shared for 12 years, and I finally let myself fall apart. I cried so hard I thought I would be sick. I cried for the marriage I thought I had. I cried for the man I thought I knew. I cried for my daughters who would grow up in a broken home. I cried for myself, for the woman who had given up everything and was now left with nothing. My phone rang around noon. It was a number I did not recognize. I almost did not answer, but something made me pick up. "Mrs. Martinez," a professional female voice said. "Yes, this is Jennifer Caldwell from Blackwood & Associate. I am calling on behalf of your husband, James Martinez. He has retained our firm to represent him in your divorce proceeding. We will be filing the petition this week. You should receive the papers within the next few days." My stomach dropped. He had already hired a lawyer. He had already started the process. This was real. This was actually happening. I don't have a lawyer," I stammered. "That is your choice, Mrs. Martinez. However, I strongly suggest you retain counsel as soon as possible. This is a complex case involving significant assets and child custody issues. You will need representation." She hung up just like that. I sat there holding my phone, feeling completely lost. How was I supposed to hire a lawyer? I had no money of my own. James controlled everything. I opened my laptop and logged into our joint bank account. The account where we kept our savings. The account that should have had about $80,000 in it. The screen loaded and I stared at the balance. $942, that was it. I refreshed the page thinking it was an error, but the number did not change. I clicked on the transaction history and my heart stopped. Over the past 6 months, James had been systematically withdrawing money. 5,000 here, 10,000 there, 15,000, 20,000. Large transfers to accounts I did not recognize. The last withdrawal was from yesterday. The day he told me about the affair, he had transferred $75,000 out of our account, leaving me with less than $1,000. I ran to the filing cabinet where we kept our financial documents. I pulled out the folder for our investment accounts. We had 3 different accounts with about $120,000 total saved for retirement and the girls' college fund. I called each company. The first one told me the account had been closed 3 months ago. The second one said the same thing. The third one said James had transferred all the funds to a new individual account in his name only last month. It was all gone. Every penny we had saved together was gone. He had stolen it, transferred it, hidden it, and I had no idea it was happening. I checked our credit cards next. There were charges I had never seen before: jewelry stores, expensive restaurants, weekend trips to Aspen and Vail, charges for thousands and thousands of dollars. But these were not on James's card. They were on the card in my name. The supplementary card he said he needed for work expenses. He had been using my card for his affair, taking Natalie on romantic getaway, buying her expensive gifts, charging it all to my name. And when we got divorced, it would look like I was the one spending recklessly. It would look like I was irresponsible with money. He had planned this. He had planned all of this. I called James's cell phone. It went straight to voicemail. I called his office. His secretary said he was in meetings all day and could not be disturbed. I texted him. "We need to talk now." No response. Hours passed. The girls came home from school. I fed them dinner. I helped Sophie with her homework. I pretended everything was normal, but inside I was screaming. Around 8 o'clock, the front door opened. James walked in. He did not look at me. He went straight upstairs. I followed him. He was in our bedroom, packing more clothes into a suitcase. "Where is our money?" I demanded. "What money?" James said, not looking up. "You know what money? Our savings, our retirement, everything is gone." James zipped up his suitcase. "I moved it. It is in a safe place." "A safe place, James? That is our money. That is for our daughter's future. You cannot just take it." He finally looked at me and his eyes were cold. "I earned that money, Lisa, not you. I worked for it. You sat at home. You contributed nothing financially. Why should you get half of money you did not earn?" I felt like he had slapped me. "I raised your children. I gave up my career for this family. That was your choice, James said. Nobody forced you to quit your job, you could have kept working, but you chose to stay home, and now you are mad because you have nothing. That is not my problem. He picked up his suitcase and walked toward the door. James, please, I said, my voice breaking. We can fix this. We can go to counseling. Think about the girls. He stopped and turned around. I do not love you anymore, Lisa. I have not loved you for a long time. Maybe I never really did. Natalie makes me happy. She is successful, ambitious, beautiful. She's everything you are not. Each word was like a knife. Get a lawyer, he continued. A good one if you can afford it, which I doubt. Because I am not giving you this house. I am not giving you my money, and I am going to make sure I get fair custody of my daughters. You better prepare yourself for a fight. Then he left. I heard his car start in the driveway. I heard him drive away. And I collapsed on the floor and realized that the man I married, the father of my children, had turned into my worst enemy. If you found out your spouse had been stealing money and cheating for years, what would be the first thing you'd do? James thinks he's already won, but he has no idea what's coming. Part 3 shows how he manipulates the kids and the court system. Smash that subscribe button so you don't miss how this story unfolds. Like if you think James deserves what's coming to him. The divorce papers arrived 5 days later. A man in a blue uniform knocked on my door and handed me a thick manila envelope. Lisa Martinez, he asked. I nodded. You have been served, he said, and walked away. I stood in my doorway holding that envelope like it was a bomb. Inside were over 50 pages of legal documents, petition for dissolution of marriage. The words were cold and official. I sat at my kitchen table and read through everything, and with each page I felt sicker and sicker. James was not just asking for a divorce, he was asking for everything. He wanted the house I had turned into a home for 12 years, the house where my daughters had grown up, the house where we had celebrated birthdays and holidays and all the moments that mattered. He claimed that since he paid the mortgage, he deserved to keep it. He wanted 50-50 custody of Maya and Sophie, but his schedule gave him every advantage. He wanted them every weekend, every holiday, spring break, and the entire summer. That meant I would barely see my daughters. He was offering me minimal alimony, just $1,800 a month for only 3 years. After that, nothing. $1,800 might sound like a lot, but not when you have to pay rent, utilities, food, insurance, and everything else for yourself and 2 girls half the time. And he wanted to pay the absolute minimum in child support. Colorado has a calculation for child support based on income, but James claimed his income was much lower than I knew it actually was. He was hiding money somewhere, I knew it, but I could not prove it. Worst part was reading why he thought he deserved all this. The petition said I had failed to contribute financially to the marriage. It said I had chosen not to work and therefore had no claim to assets earned solely by the plaintiff. It said my emotional instability made shared custody necessary to protect the children's well-being. Emotional instability. He was claiming I was unstable, me, the woman who had held our family together for 12 years while he was out cheating and lying. I needed a lawyer immediately, but I had no money to pay for one. I called every law office in Denver. Most wanted a retainer of $5,000 to $10,000 just to start. I had $942 in my checking account. That was it. I was desperate. Finally, I found Sarah Chen. She worked at a small firm that did some pro bono work for low-income clients. I explained my situation on the phone, and she agreed to meet with me. Sarah was younger than I expected, maybe early 30s, with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. She listened to my whole story without interrupting. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair and said, Lisa, I am going to be honest with you. This is going to be hard. Your husband has been planning this for a long time. He is a very expensive lawyer. Robert Blackwood is known as one of the toughest divorce attorneys in Colorado. People call him the shark because he destroys people in court. My heart sank. But can you help me? I asked. Sarah nodded. Yes, I will represent you, and we are going to fight this, but you need to understand he has advantages. He has money. He has evidence that makes you look bad, even if it is fake evidence. We need to be smart. She agreed to take my case for whatever I could afford to pay, which was almost nothing. She said we would work out payment later. I could have cried from relief. At least I was not alone anymore. Meanwhile, James started his campaign to turn everyone against me. He called our mutual friends and told them his version of the story. He said we had grown apart. He said I was difficult to live with. He said he had tried everything to make the marriage work, but I was impossible. He painted himself as the victim, the poor husband who had worked so hard to provide for his family only to have an ungrateful wife who did not appreciate him. And people believed him. Friends I had known for years stopped calling me. When I ran into people at the grocery store, they gave me cold looks. One woman, someone I thought was my friend, actually said to me, James told us how hard you made his life. I always knew you were controlling. Controlling. I had been a stay-at-home mom. I had no access to money, no career, no power in my marriage at all, but somehow I was controlling. James also started his manipulation of the girls. Every time he picked them up for his visitation days, he brought expensive gifts. For Maya, he bought the newest iPhone, the one that cost over $1,000. For Sophie, he bought an entire collection of American Girl dolls she had been wanting. He took them to fancy restaurants, the kind we could never afford when we were together. He took them to Elite Gardens amusement park. He took them shopping and let them buy whatever they wanted. And every single time he would say something like, "Dad will always take care of you. Dad will make sure you have everything you need." The message was clear: Dad has money, Dad is fun, Dad is the good parent. Meanwhile, I was struggling to buy groceries. I had to get a job, any job, just to survive. I applied everywhere, but I had been out of nursing for 12 years. Hospitals wanted current experience and recent certification. I did not have either. I finally got hired at Target as a cashier, minimum wage, part-time hours. It was humiliating. I had a nursing degree, I had skills, but none of that mattered now. I worked evening shifts, which meant I had to arrange childcare for the girls. James refused to help with that. He said, "You are the one who wanted to work, figure it out yourself." I asked my neighbor, an older woman named Mrs. Pacheco, if she could watch the girls after school on the days I worked. She agreed to do it for $20 a day, $20 I could barely afford. The girls started noticing the difference between their lives with me versus their lives with Dad. Sophie asked me one day, "Mom, why do we have mac and cheese again? Dad takes us to nice restaurants." I tried to explain. "Honey, Mom is working hard, but money is tight right now. Mac and cheese is good, right? You like mac and cheese." Sophie shrugged. "I guess, but Dad's food is better." It broke my heart. Maya was different. She did not complain about food or money, but she became distant, quiet. She spent more time in her room with the door closed. When I tried to talk to her, she would say she was fine, but I knew she was not. I knew something was bothering her, I just did not know what. James also started undermining my authority as a parent. If I told the girls they could not do something, James would tell them the opposite. I told Maya she could not go to a party where there would be no adult supervision. James told her, "Your mom is being overprotective. Of course you can go." I told Sophie she needed to finish her homework before watching TV. James said, "Homework can wait, let her have fun." He was systematically destroying my role as their mother, and it was working. The girls started questioning everything I said. They would say, "But Dad said we could," or "Dad does not make us do that." I felt like I was losing them, losing their respect, losing their trust. James knew exactly what he was doing. Then he escalated things. He hired a private investigator to follow me. I did not know about this until later, but for weeks a man in a gray car was taking pictures of me. Pictures of me crying in my car after work. Pictures of me yelling at Sophie in a Target parking lot. The context of that moment was that Sophie had run toward the road without looking. A car was coming. I grabbed her arm hard and yelled at her because I was terrified she would get hit. It was a mother protecting her child, but in the photo it just looked like me being aggressive and out of control. The PI took pictures of me looking exhausted, looking stressed, looking like a mess, and James submitted all of these photos as evidence that I was unstable and unfit. Also started texting me at weird hours. 2 in the morning, 4 in the morning, he would send messages like, "We need to talk about the girls' schedule," or "Sophie forgot her stuffed animal at my place." Messages that did not need to be sent at 4 a.m., but he was doing it on purpose. He wanted me to respond emotionally. He wanted me to text back angry messages that he could screenshot and use against me. Sarah warned me about this. She said, "Do not respond to him emotionally. Keep everything factual, keep everything brief. He is trying to provoke you." But it was hard. I was exhausted, I was scared, I was angry, and sometimes I did respond emotionally. I sent texts like, "Stop messaging me in the middle of the night, I need to sleep." Or, "You are trying to manipulate me and it is not going to work." And James screenshotted all of those messages. He showed them to his lawyer as proof that I was hostile and unable to communicate effectively. The court ordered a psychological evaluation for both of us. I had to go see a therapist named Dr. Raymond. I sat in his office for 2 hours answering questions about my childhood, my marriage, my mental health. It felt invasive and humiliating. Dr. Raymond was professional but cold. At the end, he wrote a report that said I was experiencing adjustment disorder with mixed anxiety and depressed mood, which is a fancy way of saying I was struggling with my divorce. Of course I was struggling. My husband had cheated on me, stolen my money, and was trying to take my children. Anyone would struggle with that, but in court, James's lawyer twisted that diagnosis. He made it sound like I had serious mental health problems, like I was unstable, like I was a danger to my children. None of that was true, but it did not matter. Perception was reality in a courtroom. I was drowning. Every day felt like a battle I was losing. I could not sleep. I could not eat. I lost 15 pounds in 6 weeks. My hair started falling out from stress. I had panic attacks in the Target break room. I felt like my entire life was collapsing and there was nothing I could do to stop it. And the worst part was watching my daughters pull away from me, watching them believe their father's lies, watching them prefer his house over mine because he had more money and more toys and more fun. I was terrified that by the time we got to court, they would not even want to live with me anymore, and that is exactly what James wanted. 2 months before the trial, James filed a motion for temporary custody modification. His lawyer argued that the girls needed more stability and that I was not providing it. The evidence he presented made me look like a complete failure. There were the photos from the private investigator showing me looking stressed and disheveled. There were text messages where I sounded emotional and angry. There was the psychological evaluation mentioning my adjustment disorder. There were statements from Maya saying she felt more comfortable at her dad's house because it was less stressful. Reading that statement from my own daughter felt like being stabbed in the heart. The hearing for temporary custody was in front of a judge named Harold Matthews. He was an older man, probably in his 60s, with gray hair and a stern face. James showed up looking perfect in an expensive navy suit with Natalie sitting in the gallery behind him. Yes, he brought his mistress to a custody hearing. Sarah told me to ignore it, to focus on my own case, but it was hard to ignore the woman who had destroyed my marriage sitting there looking smug. I wore the nicest outfit I owned, a black dress I had bought 5 years ago for a wedding. Next to James in his designer suit, I looked poor, and that was exactly the image he wanted to create. James's lawyer Robert Blackwood presented their case first. He was good, I had to admit. He was smooth and confident and made everything sound so reasonable. Your Honor, my client is not trying to take the children away from their mother. He simply wants what is best for them. Mr. Martinez has a stable home, a stable income, and a stable life. He can provide the girls with everything they need. Meanwhile, Mrs. Martinez is working a minimum wage job, living paycheck to paycheck, and by her own therapist's assessment, struggling with mental health issues. The children have expressed a preference for spending more time with their father. We are simply asking the court to honor that preference and modify custody temporarily while we await the final trial. Sarah stood up to argue our side. She explained that James had created this whole situation by stealing our marital assets. She explained that I was only struggling financially because he had emptied our accounts and left me with nothing. She pointed out that my so-called mental health issues were just normal stress from going through a divorce. She argued that children should not be allowed to dictate custody based on which parent has more money and buys more gifts. But I could tell Judge Matthews was not fully convinced. He kept looking at those photos of me. He kept reading Maya's statement. When Sarah finished, he said he would issue his ruling within a week. That week was torture. I barely slept. I kept imagining the judge giving James primary custody. I kept imagining my daughters living with him full-time and only seeing me every other weekend. When the ruling finally came, it was not as bad as I feared, but it was not good either. Judge Matthews ordered that custody would remain 50-50 for now, but James would get the girls every weekend instead of alternating weekends. He also got all school holidays. The judge said this was in the best interest of the children given the current circumstances. I was devastated. This meant I would have the girls during the busy school week when there was homework and stress and routine, and James would have them during the fun weekends when there were no responsibilities. He would get to be the fun parent while I was stuck being the one enforcing rules and bedtime. Girls were not happy about the change either, but not for the reasons I hoped. Maya complained that she would miss seeing her friends on weekends because Dad's house was in a different neighborhood. Sophie cried because she wanted to stay with me on weekends, but the court order was the court order. There was nothing I could do. Every Friday, James would pick them up from school and I would not see them again until Monday morning. Those weekends alone in my small apartment were the loneliest times of my life. I would sit there in the silence and wonder how everything had fallen apart so completely. James used those weekends to continue poisoning the girls against me. I did not know the details at the time, but I found out later. He would make comments like, "Your mom is always so stressed. That is why it is better you spend more time here where things are calm." Or, "I wish your mom would get her life together so you girls did not have to suffer." He never said anything directly mean about me. He was too smart for that, but the implications were clear. Mom is a mess. Dad has it together. Mom is the problem. Dad is the solution. And slowly, my daughters started to believe it. Maya especially changed. She had always been a mommy's girl, but now she barely talked to me. She would come home from James's house on Monday mornings and go straight to her room. When I asked her about her weekend, she would give one-word answers. Fine, good, nothing. She stopped sharing things with me. She stopped asking me for help with homework. She stopped wanting to watch our favorite shows together. It was like I was losing my daughter right in front of my eyes and there was nothing I could do to stop it. I tried talking to her. I tried asking what was wrong, but she would just say, "Nothing, Mom, I am fine." Except she was not fine. I could see it, but I could not reach her anymore. Sophie was different. She was only 7 and still wanted her mom. She would cry on Sunday nights before going to Dad's house. She would say, "I do not want to go, I want to stay with you." And I would have to tell her, "Baby, you have to go. The judge said so, but I will see you Monday morning." It broke my heart every single time. But James used Sophie's emotions against me too. He told his lawyer that I was coaching Sophie to be upset about going to his house. He said I was manipulating her feelings. None of that was true. Sophie was genuinely sad to leave me, but James made it sound like I was the one causing her distress. Then James really showed how low he could go. He started documenting everything I did wrong. Every time I was 5 minutes late picking up the girls from school, he documented it. Every time I forgot to send Sophie's library book in her backpack, he documented it. Every time Maya complained about anything, even something small like Mom made me eat vegetables, he documented it. He was building a case that I was a neglectful, forgetful, incompetent mother. And he was going to present all of this documentation at trial to prove I should not have custody. I felt like I was under a microscope. Like every single thing I did was being watched and judged and recorded. I could not make any mistakes. I had to be perfect. But I was exhausted and stressed and working a job and trying to keep my life together. I could not be perfect. Nobody could, but James expected me to be. No, he wanted me to fail. He wanted me to mess up so he could use it against me. Sarah tried to reassure me. She said, "Lisa, you are doing great. You are being a good mom. Do not let him get in your head." But he was already in my head. I second-guessed everything I did, every decision, every word. I was terrified of making a mistake that would cost me my children. The weeks leading up to the trial were a nightmare. Sarah and I prepared constantly. We went over my testimony again and again. She warned me that Robert Blackwood would try to make me look bad on the stand. He would try to make me emotional. He would twist my words. She said, "Stay calm, answer the questions simply. Do not get defensive. Do not cry if you can help it. I know that sounds harsh, but if you break down crying, it will confirm everything they are saying about you being unstable." I understood what she meant, but it was hard. How was I supposed to stay calm when someone was attacking my character and trying to take my children? James seemed completely confident. Every time I saw him at a custody exchange, he looked relaxed and happy. Like this was all just a minor inconvenience for him, like destroying my life was easy and fun. He would smile at me, this cold, fake smile, and say things like, "See you in court, Lisa. Hope you are ready." It was a threat, a promise. He was going to destroy me in that courtroom, and he wanted me to know it. Natalie was always with him now. She had moved into his house. The house that used to be our house. My daughters were living part-time with my husband and his mistress, and there was nothing I could do about it. James made sure the girls knew Natalie was nice and fun. Sophie told me once, "Natalie makes really good pancakes, Mom." It should not have hurt as much as it did, but it did. I felt like I was being replaced, in my marriage, in my home, and now in my daughters' hearts. The night before the trial, I could not sleep at all. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, going over everything in my head. What would I say on the stand? How would I respond to Blackwood's questions? What if I messed up? What if the judge believed James? What if I lost my girls? The fear was overwhelming. I got up at 4 in the morning and just sat in my living room in the dark. I thought about my life. About how I had gone from being a confident young nurse with a bright future to being a broke, exhausted woman fighting for her children in court. How had this happened? How had I let it happen? But I knew the answer. I had trusted the wrong person. I had loved someone who did not deserve it, and now I was paying the price. At 6 a.m., Sarah texted me, "You ready for today?" I texted back, "As ready as I will ever be." She responded, "Remember, stay calm, tell the truth, we have got this." But I did not feel like we had anything. I felt like I was walking into a battle I had already lost. I got dressed in my black dress. I did my hair and makeup as best I could. I looked in the mirror and barely recognized myself. I looked older, tired, defeated. This was not who I used to be. But this was who James had turned me into. I took a deep breath. Today was the day. Today a judge would decide the fate of my family, and I had no idea which way it would go. The courthouse was cold. Everything about it felt cold. The marble floors, the high ceilings, the fluorescent lights that made everyone look pale and tired. Sarah met me in the hallway outside the courtroom. She was carrying a briefcase full of documents and she looked serious. "How are you feeling?" she asked. I wanted to say I was terrified. I wanted to say I felt like throwing up. But instead I just said, "I am okay. Let us just get this over with." We walked into the courtroom together and I saw James already sitting at his table with Robert Blackwood. James was wearing a charcoal gray suit that probably cost more than my entire month's rent. He looked confident, relaxed, like he was attending a business meeting instead of a trial that would determine the future of his children. He did not even look at me when I walked in. The gallery behind James was full of people. His business partners, his friends, even some people I thought were our mutual friends, but clearly they had chosen his side. And of course, Natalie was there, sitting in the front row wearing a cream-colored dress and looking like she belonged, looking like she was already part of his family. It made me sick. My side of the gallery was almost empty. I had my friend Kesha, the one who had helped me find Sarah. And Mrs. Pacheco, my neighbor who watched the girls, that was it. Everyone else had abandoned me. The judge entered and we all stood. Judge Harold Matthews looked even more intimidating sitting up on that bench in his black robe. He had a stack of files in front of him and I knew one of those files was about me, about my life, about my failures as a wife and mother, at least according to James. Robert Blackwood stood up to give his opening statement. His voice was deep and commanding. He knew how to work a courtroom. Your Honor, this case is about a father who is trying to protect his children from instability. James Martinez is a successful real estate developer who has worked hard his entire adult life to provide for his family. He owns a beautiful home. He has a steady income. He is a devoted father who wants nothing more than to give his daughters the life they deserve. Unfortunately, his ex-wife has demonstrated time and time again that she is unable to provide that same level of stability. He paused for effect. Mrs. Martinez quit her career 12 years ago. She has no significant work history. She is currently employed part-time at a retail store making minimum wage. She is living in a small apartment. And according to a court-ordered psychological evaluation, she is suffering from mental health issues that affect her ability to parent effectively. Every word felt like a punch. He made me sound like a complete failure. He made it sound like I had chosen to be poor and struggling. He did not mention that James had stolen all our money. He did not mention that James had emptied our savings accounts and left me with nothing. He did not mention that I had sacrificed my career to raise James's children while he built his business. None of that mattered to Blackwood. He only cared about making me look bad. The evidence will show, Blackwood continued, that Mrs. Martinez is emotionally volatile, that she has been documented yelling at her children in public, that she has sent hostile and aggressive text messages to my client, that even her own daughter has expressed a preference for living primarily with her father because the environment at her mother's home is stressful and unstable. Your Honor, we are not asking you to take these children away from their mother completely. We are simply asking for primary custody to be awarded to the parent who can actually provide for them, the parent who has demonstrated stability, responsibility, and sound judgment. That parent is James Martinez. Blackwood sat down looking satisfied with himself. I felt like I was going to be sick. Sarah stood up for our opening statement. She was not as smooth as Blackwood, but she was passionate and honest. Your Honor, what you have just heard is a very carefully constructed lie. James Martinez is not the victim here, he is the perpetrator. For 2 years, Mr. Martinez carried on an affair with a coworker while his wife stayed home raising his children. When he decided he wanted a divorce, he did not just leave. He systematically stole marital assets, he emptied bank accounts, he transferred retirement funds, he left my client with less than $1,000 to her name, and then he had the audacity to claim in court documents that she contributed nothing to the marriage. Sarah's voice got stronger. Lisa Martinez gave up her nursing career at her husband's request so she could be a full-time mother. She spent 12 years raising their daughters, managing their household, and supporting her husband's career. She did not contribute nothing, she contributed everything. And now that Mr. Martinez has decided he wants a new life with his mistress, he is trying to paint Lisa as an unfit mother so he can avoid paying adequate support and take the children away from the woman who has been their primary caregiver their entire lives. Sarah picked up a document from our table. The evidence will show that Mr. Martinez has been manipulating his daughters, buying their affection with expensive gifts, undermining their mother's authority, coaching them to say they prefer living with him. The evidence will also show that the so-called proof of Lisa's instability is taken completely out of context. A photo of her yelling at her daughter in a parking lot. That was because the child ran toward traffic and Lisa grabbed her to save her life. Hostile text messages, those were sent at 4 in the morning after Mr. Martinez deliberately texted her in the middle of the night to provoke a reaction. Your Honor, this entire case is a setup and we are going to prove it. Sarah sat down. I felt a tiny bit of hope. At least someone was telling the truth, but I did not know if it would be enough. Blackwood called his first witness. It was one of James's business partners, a man named Richard Hoffman. Richard testified that James was a dedicated professional who worked hard and always put his family first. He said James often talked about his daughters and how much he loved them. He made James sound like Father of the Year. On cross-examination, Sarah asked Richard how often he actually saw James with his children. Richard admitted he had only met Maya and Sophie once at a company picnic 2 years ago, so his testimony about James being a devoted father was basically worthless. But it still sounded good when Blackwood was questioning him. Next witness was worse. It was Natalie. James's mistress was going to testify about what a great father he was. I could not believe this was happening. Natalie took the stand and swore to tell the truth, then she lied through her teeth. Blackwood asked her how long she had known James. She said, about 6 months. A lie. They had been together for 2 years. He asked when their relationship became romantic. She said, after he and Lisa separated, I would never get involved with a married man. Another lie. I had hotel receipts proving they were together long before we separated. But Sarah could not use those receipts because I had found them by going through James's things, and Blackwood would argue I had invaded his privacy. Natalie testified that she had spent time with Maya and Sophie and that they were happy, well-adjusted children who loved their father. She said James was patient and kind with them. She said the girls had told her they felt more relaxed at Dad's house. Every word she said was poison, and the worst part was that she sounded believable. She looked wholesome and sincere. If you did not know she was a homewrecker and a liar, you would think she was a nice person genuinely concerned about the children's welfare. Sarah tried to cross-examine her, but there was not much she could do. Sarah asked Natalie if she had any training or expertise in child psychology. Natalie admitted she did not. Sarah asked if Natalie had children of her own. She said no, so basically Natalie was not qualified to judge anything about parenting, but the damage was already done. Then came the worst part. Blackwood called the private investigator, a man named Dennis Cole. He presented all the photos he had taken of me crying in my car, me looking exhausted after a shift at Target, me grabbing Sophie's arm in the parking lot, me sitting alone on a bench looking depressed. Every photo was designed to make me look unstable and unfit. Dennis testified that he had observed me for 6 weeks and that my behavior was concerning. He said I appeared emotionally volatile and inconsistent in my parenting. Sarah objected multiple times, pointing out that Dennis Cole was not a psychologist and had no expertise to judge someone's mental state from photographs, but Judge Matthews allowed most of the testimony anyway. When it was finally our turn, Sarah called me to the stand. This was it. This was my chance to tell my side of the story. I walked up to the witness stand on shaking legs. I put my hand on the Bible and swore to tell the truth. Then I sat down and looked out at the courtroom. James was staring at me with cold eyes. Natalie was smirking. All of James's supporters were watching me like I was an animal in a zoo. I felt so small, so powerless. Sarah started with easy questions. She asked me to explain my marriage, my decision to quit nursing, my role as a stay-at-home mother. I told the truth about everything. I explained that James had asked me to quit my job, that I had dedicated 12 years to raising our daughters, that I had given up everything for our family. Then Sarah asked about the money. I explained how James had emptied our bank accounts, how he had transferred all our savings to accounts I could not access, how he had used my credit card for his affair and made it look like I was the one spending recklessly. I explained that I was only working at Target because he had left me with no other option. I had applied to nursing jobs, but after 12 years out of the field, no one would hire me without updated certifications, and I could not afford the courses I needed to get recertified. Sarah asked about the psychological evaluation. I explained that yes, I was struggling emotionally, but that was a normal response to having your husband cheat on you, steal from you, and try to take your children. Anyone would struggle with that. Sarah asked about my relationship with my daughters. I started to cry. I could not help it. I love my girls more than anything in this world, I said, my voice breaking. They are everything to me. I have spent every day of their lives trying to be the best mother I can be, and now James is trying to take them away from me because I do not have as much money as he does. That is not fair. That is not right. Sarah sat down, and then Robert Blackwood stood up. It was time for cross-examination, and I knew this was going to be bad. Robert Blackwood walked toward me slowly like a shark circling prey. He had a folder in his hand and a smile on his face that made my stomach turn. Mrs. Martinez, he began, his voice calm and almost friendly. You testified that you love your daughters and that you have always tried to be a good mother. Is that correct? I nodded. Yes, that is correct. He opened his folder and pulled out a photograph. It was one of the pictures from the private investigator. The one of me grabbing Sophie's arm in the parking lot. Can you explain this photo, Mrs. Martinez? This shows you grabbing your 7-year-old daughter aggressively. Does that look like the behavior of a loving mother? My hands were shaking. That is out of context. Sophie ran toward the street. A car was coming. I grabbed her to pull her back. I was protecting her. Blackwood raised his eyebrows. So you are saying you had to use physical force to control your child, that she does not listen to you? I felt trapped. No, that is not what I am saying. She's 7. Sometimes 7-year-olds do not look before they run. I was keeping her safe. Blackwood nodded like he did not believe me. Let us talk about your mental health, Mrs. Martinez. You were diagnosed with adjustment disorder, correct? I took a deep breath. Yes, but that is a normal response to divorce. It does not mean I am unstable. Blackwood pulled out another document. But your therapist noted that you have difficulty sleeping, that you have experienced panic attacks, that you cry frequently. Would you say that is a stable environment for children? I felt tears starting to form. Stay calm, I told myself, do not cry. I am going through a difficult time because my husband cheated on me and stole my money. That does not make me a bad mother. Blackwood walked closer. You claim my client stole money, but you have no proof of that, do you? All you have is your word against his. I wanted to scream. He emptied our accounts. The transaction records show it. Blackwood shook his head. The transaction records show that money was withdrawn from joint accounts. Money that my client earned. You contributed no income to those accounts, did you? Each question was a trap. Each answer made me look worse. I could see Judge Matthews taking notes. I could see the doubt on his face. I was losing. I could feel it. Blackwood went on for 20 more minutes, asking about my job at Target, asking why I had not gotten a better job, asking why I had not kept up my nursing certifications, asking about text messages I had sent James. Every single question was designed to make me look incompetent, unstable, irresponsible. By the time he finally said no further questions, I was exhausted and crying. I had tried so hard not to cry, but I could not help it. I had just proven everything they were saying about me, that I was emotional, that I was unstable, that I could not handle pressure. Sarah tried to repair the damage on redirect, but it was too late. The judge had seen me break down. I stepped off the witness stand feeling like I had just lost my children. Sarah called a few more witnesses. My neighbor Mrs. Pacheco testified that I was a good mother and that the girls were always happy and well cared for when they were with me. My friend Kesha testified that James had been controlling during our marriage and that she had seen the change in me after the affair was discovered. But none of it felt like enough. Blackwood had presented a clear, organized case with photos and documents and expert witnesses. We had presented emotion and character witnesses. In a courtroom, evidence beats emotion every time. When Sarah rested our case, I felt hopeless. I looked over at James and he was smiling. He knew he had won. Judge Matthews said he would take a short recess before closing arguments. Sarah and I went into the hallway. "I am so sorry," I said to her. "I cried on the stand. I know you told me not to and I did anyway." Sarah squeezed my arm. "Lisa, you are human. You are going through hell. No one expects you to be a robot." But I knew it did not matter. I had looked exactly like the unstable woman they said I was. We went back into the courtroom. Judge Matthews returned to the bench. He looked tired. "We will now hear closing arguments," he said. Blackwood went first. He summarized all his evidence. The photos, the psychological evaluation, the testimony from witnesses, Maya's statement about preferring her father's house. He made it sound so clear, so obvious. James should have primary custody. I was unfit. Sarah gave our closing argument. She talked about how I had sacrificed everything for my family, how James had manipulated the evidence, how he had stolen our money and then used my poverty against me. She argued that children need their mother, especially daughters. She begged the judge to see the truth, but I could tell from Judge Matthews's face that he had already made up his mind. When Sarah sat down, the judge picked up his gavel. "I want to thank both counsel for their arguments. This court will take a brief recess and then I will issue my ruling." My heart stopped. He was going to rule today, right now. Sarah grabbed my hand. "No matter what happens, we can appeal," she whispered. But I did not want to appeal. I wanted to keep my children. Judge Matthews stood to leave, and that is when it happened. A voice from the back of the courtroom called out, "Wait, Your Honor, please wait." Everyone turned. Standing at the back of the courtroom was Maya, my 14-year-old daughter. She was supposed to be at school. How was she here? James stood up immediately. "Maya, what are you doing here? You need to leave. This is not appropriate." But Maya did not leave. She walked down the center aisle holding her phone in her hand. Her face was pale but determined. "Your Honor," she said, her voice shaking, "can I please show you something? Something my mom does not know about." The entire courtroom went silent. Judge Matthews looked confused. "Young lady, this is highly irregular. You should not be here." Maya kept walking until she was standing in front of the judge's bench. "Please, Your Honor, this is important. I have a video that proves my dad has been lying about everything." James's face went white. "Maya, stop right now." His voice had panic in it, real panic. Blackwood was on his feet. "Your Honor, I object to this. The child should not be allowed to disrupt these proceedings." But Judge Matthews held up his hand. He was looking at Maya with curiosity now. "What kind of video?" he asked her. Maya held up her phone. "I recorded my dad and Natalie talking about 6 months ago. I heard them in Dad's office late at night and something felt wrong, so I recorded them. I did not know if I should show anyone. I did not want to hurt my mom more than she was already hurting. But then today at school I heard some kids talking about the trial. They said their parents said my mom was going to lose custody, and I knew I had to do something." Tears were streaming down her face now. "My dad has been lying, Your Honor, about everything, and I have proof." Judge Matthews looked at James, whose face was now red. He looked at Blackwood, who looked like he wanted to object but did not know what to say. Then the judge looked back at Maya. "Approach the bench," he said. Maya walked forward. A court clerk helped her connect her phone to the courtroom monitor. The big screens on the walls flickered to life. I had no idea what was on that video. I was frozen in my seat. Sarah grabbed my hand. On the screen, Maya's phone interface appeared. She scrolled through her videos and found the one she was looking for. The date stamp said 6 months ago, late at night. She pressed play. The video was dark at first. You could hear voices in the background. Then the camera angle adjusted and you could see James's home office. James was sitting at his desk. Natalie was sitting on the edge of the desk. They were both holding wine glasses. The audio was clear. Natalie's voice came through the speakers. "So when are you actually going to file for divorce?" James laughed. "Soon. I just need to move more money first. I have been transferring funds to the offshore account for months. Lisa has no idea. She does not even check the bank statements." My heart stopped. He had just admitted to hiding money. The video continued. Natalie asked, "What about custody? Do you really want the girls full-time?" James shrugged. "Not really, but I need to ask for it so I look like the good parent. Plus it will give me leverage. If I ask for full custody, the court will probably give me 50-50. And Lisa will be so relieved to get 50-50 that she will not fight as hard on the financial stuff." Natalie laughed. "You are so smart." James grinned. "I have been planning this for 2 years. Every move calculated, the credit card charges on her card, the private investigator making her look unstable. It is all part of the plan." The courtroom was completely silent except for the voices on the video. James in the present was standing frozen, his mouth open. Blackwood was staring at the screen in horror. Natalie looked like she wanted to disappear. On the video, James continued talking. "The best part is I hired that pie to follow her and provoke her. He was supposed to catch her looking crazy. And he did. Those photos are perfect. She looks like a mess." Natalie giggled. "What if she gets a good lawyer?" James waved his hand dismissively. "She cannot afford a good lawyer, and even if she finds someone to take her case, what is she going to do? She has no proof of anything. It is my word against hers, and I look better. I have money, a nice house, a stable life. She has nothing. By the time we get to trial, I will have destroyed her credibility completely." The video showed them kissing. Then James raised his wine glass. "To freedom, to finally getting rid of dead weight, to starting our real life together." Natalie clinked her glass against his. "To us, and to your stupid ex-wife getting exactly what she deserves, nothing." They both laughed. The video ended. The screen went black. For 3 full seconds no one moved, no one spoke, no one even breathed. Then Judge Matthews's face turned red with fury. Judge Matthews slammed his gavel down so hard I thought it might break. The sound echoed through the silent courtroom like a gunshot. "Mr. Martinez," the judge said, his voice shaking with anger. "Stand up." James stood slowly. All the color had drained from his face. His confident posture was gone. He looked like a man who knew his life was about to fall apart. "Is that your voice on that recording?" Judge Matthews demanded. James opened his mouth, but no words came out. His lawyer Robert Blackwood stood up quickly. "Your Honor, I need to consult with my client before he answers any questions. This recording may have been obtained illegally. I need time to review." "Sit down, Mr. Blackwood," the judge interrupted, his voice like ice. "I do not care how the recording was obtained. What I care about is that I just watched a video of your client admitting to fraud, perjury, and systematic manipulation of these court proceedings. I care that I almost made a ruling based on fabricated evidence and lies." Blackwood sat down, and for the first time since I met him, he looked scared. Judge Matthews turned back to James. "I will ask you one more time. Is that your voice on the recording?" James finally found his voice. "Your Honor, I can explain. That conversation was taken out of context. I was just venting. I was frustrated. I did not actually mean." "Do not lie to me again," Judge Matthews roared. "I just watched you admit to hiding marital assets in an offshore account. I watched you admit to deliberately using your wife's credit card to frame her for excessive spending. I watched you admit to hiring a private investigator specifically to provoke her and make her look unstable. I watched you admit that this entire custody battle was a manipulation tactic to gain leverage in the financial settlement. Do you understand how serious this is?" James looked down at his feet. He had no defense. There was no way to spin what we had all just seen. The judge turned to Maya and his expression softened. "Young lady, that was very brave of you. Can you tell me why you waited until now to show this video?" Maya wiped tears from her face. "I recorded it because I knew something was wrong. I heard my dad on the phone making plans and it did not sound right. But I did not want to hurt my mom by showing her that video. She was already so sad. I thought maybe adults would figure it out without me having to show it. But then today at school, kids were talking about the trial. They said their parents were saying my mom was going to lose. And I realized no one knew the truth except me. So I texted my friend's mom and asked her to drive me here. I am sorry if I did something wrong, boo. I could not let my dad take us away from our mom when he has been lying the whole time." Judge Matthews nodded slowly. "You did nothing wrong, sweetheart. You told the truth. That is what this court is supposed to be about, truth and justice. And I almost failed at both because I believed lies that were very well presented." He turned to face the entire courtroom. "This court is calling an immediate recess. I am ordering a full forensic accounting investigation into all of Mr. Martinez's financial accounts, including any offshore accounts. I am also referring this matter to the district attorney's office for potential criminal charges including fraud, perjury, and contempt of court." James started to speak, but the judge cut him off. "You will not say another word, Mr. Martinez. Anything you say can and will be used against you. If I were you, I would hire a criminal defense attorney immediately." The judge looked at Robert Blackwood. "Mr. Blackwood, did you have any knowledge of your client's plan to present fabricated evidence to this court?" Blackwood stood up quickly. "Absolutely not, Your Honor. I was completely unaware. My client assured me that all evidence was obtained legally and truthfully. If I had known he was lying, I never would have presented this case. I would like to withdraw as counsel immediately." Judge Matthews nodded. "Withdrawal granted. You may leave." Blackwood gathered his papers with shaking hands. He did not look at James, he just walked out of the courtroom as fast as he could. His reputation was destroyed. No one would hire a lawyer who had been fooled so completely. The judge turned back to James. Mr. Martinez, you are ordered to provide documentation for every financial account you control within 72 hours. Any failure to comply will result in contempt charges. You are also ordered to cease all contact with the minor children except for supervised visitation pending further order of this court. James finally spoke. Your Honor, please, they are my daughters. I love them. I made mistakes, but I love my girls. Judge Matthews's expression did not soften. You used your daughters as pawns in a game, you manipulated them, you bought their affection with expensive gifts while systematically destroying their mother. That is not love, Mr. Martinez, that is abuse. Court is adjourned. He slammed his gavel down one final time and left the courtroom. The moment the judge was gone, chaos erupted. People were talking and shouting. James was standing at his table looking lost. Natalie was crying in the gallery. Sarah grabbed me and hugged me tight. We won, Lisa, oh my God, we won. But I was not thinking about winning. I was looking at Maya, my brave, incredible daughter who had saved us. I ran to her and pulled her into my arms. Baby girl, thank you so much. Maya hugged me back, crying. I am sorry I kept it secret, Mom. I just did not know what to do. I pulled back and looked at her face. You did exactly the right thing. You were so brave. You saved us. Over the next 3 weeks, everything changed. The forensic accountant discovered that James had hidden over $320,000 in offshore accounts. Money he had systematically stolen from our marriage. The court ordered all of it returned to me immediately, plus interest. James was also ordered to pay my legal fees, which totaled over $40,000. The criminal investigation moved forward. James was charged with multiple counts of fraud, perjury, and contempt of court. His bail was set at $100,000. He had to put up his house as collateral to get out of jail. His business partners immediately distanced themselves from him. No one wanted to be associated with a man who had committed fraud and lied under oath. Within a month, his real estate business collapsed. He lost contracts, he lost clients, he lost everything. Natalie left him the moment the money disappeared. She moved out of his house and blocked his number. Turns out she was not interested in James when he was broke and facing prison time. She only wanted him when he was rich and successful. James ended up pleading guilty to avoid a trial. He was sentenced to 18 months in prison and 5 years probation. He also had to pay restitution and fines that totaled over $200,000. The final divorce settlement gave me everything. I got the house, I got 70% of all marital assets, I got full custody of Maya and Sophie. James was granted supervised visitation only 2 hours every other Sunday at a supervised visitation center. He also had to pay child support and alimony, $3,500 a month total for the next 10 years. The judge made it very clear that James had brought this all on himself through his lies and manipulation. 6 months after the trial, my life looked completely different. I had money again. Real money, enough to pay off debts, fix up the who's. And enroll in a nursing recertification program. I went back to school part-time to get my nursing credentials updated. It was hard work, but I loved it. I had forgot how much I loved nursing, how good it felt to use my brain and my skills. Within a year, I was working as a registered nurse again at a hospital in Denver. I was making good money, I was independent, I was free. The girls were doing so much better too. Sophie was happy and bubbly again. She stopped crying at night. She stopped asking why Daddy did bad things. She just focused on being a 7-year-old kid. She played with her friends. She did well in school. She was healing. Maya was different. She had grown up a lot through this experience. She was quieter, more serious, but she was also stronger. She knew she had saved our family, and that gave her confidence. We talked a lot about what had happened, about the video, about her choice to keep it secret for so long. I told her I understood, that she had been trying to protect me, that she had done nothing wrong. We went to therapy together, just the two of us, to process everything. It helped. Our relationship became even closer than before. Maya told me one day, Mom, I am sorry I ever believed Dad's lies. I am sorry I acted like his house was better. It was not better, it was just expensive. But you are what made our real home. You always have been. I did not have much contact with James anymore. He was in prison for the first year, and after he got out, he only saw the girls at supervised visits. Most of the time, he did not even show up. He would cancel at the last minute with some excuse. Work, sick, busy, but I knew the truth. He was ashamed that his daughters knew what kind of man he really was, ashamed that he had lost everything, and honestly, I did not care anymore. I had spent so much energy hating him, fearing him, fighting him, but now I just felt nothing. He was irrelevant to my life. He was just a monthly child support payment and a bad memory. One Saturday afternoon, about a year after the trial, I was sitting in the park with Maya and Sophie. We were having a picnic. The sun was shining, the girls were laughing. Sophie was chasing butterflies. Maya was reading a book next to me on the blanket. I looked at them and felt overwhelming gratitude. We had survived. We had fought through the worst time of our lives and come out stronger on the other side. Maya looked up from her book and saw me watching her. "What?" she asked with a smile. "Nothing," I said. "I am just happy, really, truly happy." Maya smiled. "Me too, Mom, me too." I want to say something to anyone watching this who might be going through something similar. If your spouse is manipulating you, if they're gaslighting you and making you feel crazy, if they're controlling all the money and making you dependent on them, please know that you are not alone. Please know that it is not your fault. And please know that you can fight back. Document everything, save evidence, find people who will help you, and most importantly, trust your children. They see more than we think they see. They understand more than we give them credit for. Maya saved me because I had taught her to value truth and justice. She saved me because she loved me. Your children love you too, and together you can survive anything. My name is Lisa Martinez. I am 37 years old. I am a registered nurse. I am a mother. I am a survivor. And I am finally free. Thank you for watching my story. If this video helped you or inspired you, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment telling me where you are watching from and what you thought of this story. And if you really want to support us, consider sending a super thanks. It helps us keep making videos that share real stories of survival and justice. Remember, the truth always comes to light. Always. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next story. Do you think Maya was right to wait so long before showing the video, or should she have revealed it sooner? If Lisa's story inspired you or taught you something important, please subscribe and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Hit like if you believe justice was served. Comment karma if you're satisfied with how this ended. Thank you for watching, and remember, document everything, trust your instincts, and never give up fighting for what's right. See you in the next story.